I was 17, I went to college. And of course, when you leave the nest, you want to just explore and have fun. But unfortunately, the friends that I made were not the best. But at the time, I didn't see that. And I made friends with these girls. And of course, they weren't Christians, but they knew how to have fun. And that was my main goal, was just to have fun. And we formed what I thought was a close, very close relationship. We were best friends. We would hang out every single day. And as the time went by, we would hang out every day. We would just spend every waking moment together. But they introduced me to drinking. And so one thing about drinking is that drinking is kind of like a family curse, or a generational curse, I should say, where we struggle with that. And so I took my first sip of alcohol, and that kind of just led me down the wrong path. So I would say my sophomore year of college, I started coming back to church, because I stopped going to church in high school. And I started coming back to church about my sophomore year. My mom was invited to Christian Outreach Temple of Deliverance by a coworker of hers, Sister Lamonica. And my mom, she called me. She was so excited about this church because there's a whole bunch of young people. So I came home, I believe it was Easter weekend. And I came to church, and I happened to know the majority of the young people because we all grew up in Montclair. We went to high school together and some middle school together. So I came to the church, and that same service, Pastor Haynes gave me a word. And he told me, he said, "You're going to graduate college." Because at that time, my grades weren't good. I was on academic probation, and I was on a scholarship, academic scholarship. So I kind of had to keep my grades up. But at this time, since I was so caught up in partying and fitting in, I let my grades slip. So Pastor Haynes prophesied in my life, and he said, "You're going to graduate, but the people that you're surrounding yourself with, you need to cut ties with them, because they're hindering you from the purpose and the plan that God has for your life." So I'm so used to always being around people and having all these friends that it kind of scared me to be alone. So I understood what he said, and I knew that I had to, but I didn't want to. So I went back to school that following Monday. The behavior between my so-called friends weren't the same. So I still try to hold on to that relationship, even though I felt that we were becoming distant. And it wasn't the same when I went back. So I would say maybe a month later, there was a party. And I knew I shouldn't have gone, but I wanted to go because everybody else was going. I was more so a follower than a leader at this point in time. And so we all went to this party. And the whole time I'm at this party, it was a little uncomfortable because I was getting these mean stares from these girls who I was so-called friends with at one point in time. And so I had this friend named Jasmine, who I called my twin. And she saw the tension, and she felt the tension, and she saw the eyes that were coming my way, and she didn't like it. So during the party, she decided she was going to approach these girls. So she approached them, and then a fight broke out. And then next thing you know, somehow I got involved in the fight, and I got jumped, and it was just this whole situation that went down. And after that whole fight, I stopped being friends with the girls, and we didn't talk. But we would see each other because, of course, we go to the same college, so we would see each other in passing. But in the meantime of all of this, the school had me on suicide watch because, I was very depressed. I was drinking myself into blackout status, and it was a very dark time because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. All I knew was drinking. All I knew were these girls for the past 2 years that I was in college. And so my mom would just constantly call me, check on me, encourage me. She would tell me, the word that was given maybe that Sunday or that Wednesday in church, just to encourage me. She would send me the messages, and I would just continue to be fed by Pastor Haynes' teachings and just continue to just try to live life right, even though it was kind of hard for me to stop drinking, but eventually I stopped. And I started to come to church more often, even though I was in college and I went to college in Connecticut. Whenever I was able to come home on the weekends or come home for the holidays, I made sure that I was in church to be fed by Pastor Haynes. And ever since then, my life has not been the same. I'm serving in the ministry, and I just love coming to church. I love God. I just love being in His presence. And I just thank God for Pastor Haynes speaking that word into my life. And I will never forget my first encounter with Pastor Haynes and my first encounter with God.